Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. And you can watch this program on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. That's Radyo Pilipinas World Service. And this program can be listened on the following shortwave frequencies: 12.010 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.820 MHz. Join us for another edition of Front and Center. I'm your host, Jerome Toledo. Last time, we spoke with maritime law expert Professor J. Batumbakal to provide some analysis on the recent Ayungin Shoal incident between the personnel of Philippine Navy and the Chinese Coast Guard. He said that China's activity towards rotation and resupply or RORI mission of the Philippine Navy in the said shoal is illegal. Professor Batumbakal also said in our interview that carrying weapons for self-defense and protection by the Philippine maritime authorities is justified. Also, according to the guidelines, no firearms will be handled or shown by our personnel to the China Coast Guard personnel. And it is worth noting that Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard is taking the lead on guarding our maritime frontiers these days. Now, what is next for Philippine Navy after Ayungin Shoal incident? Are we going to be firmer in standing our ground? And today, we are going to hear from the Philippine Navy spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, none other than Rear Admiral Vincent Trinidad. Rear Admiral Trinidad, thank you so much for joining us here on Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Yes, you're always welcome, Jerome. First and foremost, Jerome, to all of your followers worldwide, to our OFWs, to our Filipinos, wherever you are around the globe, good morning to all of you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for keeping the economy alive by what you are doing in your respective fields through your remittances.
All right. And it's our pleasure to have you in the program as well to give us some insights about the topic that we're going to discuss today. Okay, first, what can you say about China's action in the West Philippine Sea recently?
Jerome, we have to look at this, what is happening in the West Philippine Sea, as a microcosm of China's actions in the global stage. What do I mean? Or before that, I would like to be more specific. Mm-hmm. Actions of the Chinese Communist Party in the global stage. Mm-hmm. We have to dissect. We have to be more specific because China as a nation is composed of different sectors, different people. Their citizens are also at the mercy, at the receiving end of the actions of the Chinese Communist Party. Hence, I would like to emphasize that China is not the problem. Mm-hmm. The Chinese Communist Party is the problem. Their actions in the West Philippine Sea is a microcosm of the actions of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, in the world stage. They have different approaches across the different dimensions of national power. Political, economic, techno-scientific, educational, that full range, the full spectrum of the instrument of national power. What is happening now is an interplay of the different instruments for them to be able to achieve their national objectives, which are more often than not military objectives. Politically, in the Philippines, we have the infiltration by certain personalities with dubious backgrounds. Economically, we see some of the investments here, which could serve dual purposes. Economically, not only to the Philippines, Jerome, but even to other countries. the One Belt, One Road, which could also be a death trap, and a lot of countries are experiencing this. Now we go to the West Philippine Sea. China's 9 or 10 dash line has overlapped with the maritime entitlements, the maritime zones of other countries fronting the South China Sea. That includes Vietnam, that includes Singapore, that includes the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei. And China's 9 dash line has already been debunked by the Arbitral Tribunal in 2016. I think it was July 16,
Mm-hmm.
2016.
Correct.
So, in short, it does not exist. And yet, China would now like to enforce the 9 dash line through the PLA, People's Liberation Army Navy, through the Chinese Coast Guard, through the Maritime Militia. So we are now seeing an increase of their actions in in the South China Sea, which overlaps with 80% of our EEZ. Hence, it intrudes into our West Philippine Sea. That is the situation, Jerome.
I see. And it's the Chinese maritime authorities are causing these actions in the disputed waters.
Yes, this all started, Jerome, in 1992, after the pullout of the U.S. bases. The
Mm-hmm.
Philippine Navy started noticing that there were different unidentified markers back then.
Mm.
These markers were well within our EEZ. They were in our shallow areas, in our reefs, our coals, our shoals, our case. And then the Navy started blowing them up, removing them, until such time that Mischief Reef, which is just 30 nautical miles from Second Thomas Shoal or Ayungin Shoal,
Mm.
we were prevented from entering Mischief Reef. Mischief Reef or Panganiban Reef is an enclosed area. It's a shelter for our ships in times of inclement weather. So
Mm.
the PLA Navy prevented us from coming in. And
All right.
they started erecting structures which they said were for fishermen to seek shelter
Mm-hmm.
or for maritime research.
All right. All right.
But we now know
Mm-hmm.
that these features will soon be the jumping board for reclamation activities and for militarizing the area. That is where we are now. They the PLA Navy prevented the Philippine Navy ships from entering Mischief Reef. And then we saw them erecting structures,
Mm-hmm.
wooden structures, which soon became concrete structures, which soon gave way to reclamation activities,
Mm-hmm.
and the putting up of an airstrip, of piers and ports for the ships, and the stationing of military aircraft and the PLA Navy.
Mm-hmm.
So China or the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, militarized these reclaimed areas well within our EEZ.
Mm-hmm.
And today, they have a large number of ships from the PLA Navy, the South Sea Fleet, the Chinese Coast Guard, and the Maritime Militia stationed in Johnson, in uh, Mischief, and in the third military base that they have established. The name just escaped me for the moment. From
Mm-hmm.
there, they staged. It's a staging area for the ships when they go all over South China Sea.
All right. Okay. And it looks like China will not stop. It's developing its supposedly their territory in the West Philippine Sea. All right, Admiral Trinidad, I would like to ask, do you have information on when the new missile-guided corvette BRP Miguel Malvar of the Philippine Navy will be formally inducted into service?
Yeah, BRP Miguel Malvar is our newest ship that will soon be delivered, probably the first quarter
Mm-hmm.
of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
This will be a corvette. It will be equipped with capabilities to allow it to fight across the four domains of warfare, from the
Mm-hmm.
sea, surface, air, subsurface, and in the electronic spectrum. It will be a very welcome capability boost to our Philippine Navy.
Mm. It will be capable of like defending our maritime territory against China's aggression, right?
Yes, it's not enough for sure, but it is a great leap forward for the Philippine Navy. We have already started decommissioning our legacy ships, or these are World War II or Korean War vintage ships who have served us well, and we are thankful to the government for providing the much needed support, not only for the Philippine Navy but to the entire armed forces. That has allowed us to improve our capability, thus enabling us to better perform our mandate of protecting the sovereignty of the country, the integrity of the territory, and looking after the Filipinos wherever he is around the world.
I see. Okay. Moving on, Admiral Trinidad. So I would like to ask also this: what is your reaction on the China's monster ship patrolling the entire West Philippine Sea? So how does Western Command challenge this kind of action from China? And may we know how Westcom will challenge this?
Yeah, the patrol of the world's largest Coast Guard ship, the 12,000 ton, we call them her the monster ship, is actually nothing new. But because it's the world's largest Coast Guard ship, a lot of emphasis has been given to that ship. Even before that, the world's largest Coast Guard ship was noticed, there were already a lot of intrusions by the Chinese Coast Guard, by the PLA Navy, by the maritime militia. So the issue here is the Chinese Communist parties, I call them the agents of aggression, have intruded into our exclusive economic zone. In the first place, they should not be there. Whether they are a PLA Navy gray ship, whether they are a Coast Guard ship or a maritime militia or the monster ship, they should not be there in the first place. The patrol of the Coast Guard ship, we take note of it, we monitor it just as we monitor all other ships of the PLA Navy, the Coast Guard, and the maritime militia.
Okay. In relation to that, Admiral, are we considering fighting back against China should the latter repeat its behavior against our naval forces in the maritime area?
Of course, the fact that we are standing up to China's intrusion into our exclusive economic zone, we are standing up. We are fighting all her advances, all the advances of the Chinese Communist Party. The fact that we are fighting for the integrity of our national territory, for our sovereignty, for our sovereign rights, this standing up means that we are fighting against China's illegal intrusion into our exclusive economic zone. And I would like to point out there are a lot of narratives being sent out by the CCP, by the Chinese Communist Party. Narratives which are intended to divert us from the real issue. What are the samples of these narratives? That we are a puppet of the US. That this is now a great power. We are just caught in a great power competition between the US and China. Those are false narratives. In the first place, any country in the world, any sovereign state in the world, will always have her own national interest. It is within our national interest to ensure that the integrity of the republic, of our territory, remains intact, regardless of what are the issues between the great powers, between China, between the US, or the other great powers of the world. We have our own interest. We are standing up for this interest. We will fight for these interests.
And we should be befriending our like-minded nations and also gather support with like-minded countries that supports us our aspirations in the maritime in our maritime aspirations.
Yes, if you will notice, Jerome, geography is a constant. We could not pick or select our geography. And we have been put at the front line of the Chinese Communist Party's expansionist ambitions. So it's the Philippines that is first and foremost affected by this. Other countries have been very supportive of us because we have been fighting for a rules-based international order. What do I mean by that? In international relations, there is no higher sovereign being than the individual state.
Right.
And these states interact among each other. Nobody governs No single state governs the actions of the other sovereign states. Hence, all have to rely on international law as the governing factor that will temper the actions of the different states in the international arena. Without international law, we will fall down to the time where might is right. We would fall down to the time when the stronger economic powers, the stronger military powers will be able to have their say over the weaker states. Other Western countries, other countries have been very, very supportive of us because they don't want the rules-based international order to be disregarded. If it is disregarded, soon they will also feel the effect on their respective countries.
All right, and despite these challenges between Philippines and China, we should be asserting our rights.
Yes, of course. Of course, we have to assert. We owe it to the current generation of Filipinos and the future generation of Filipinos that our integrity of the territory will remain, and this will be what we hand over to them. A complete archipelago, a complete state.
Okay. All right. Before we wrap up our discussion for today, Admiral Trinidad, so I would like to get your message to the Filipino people amidst the growing tensions in the West Philippine Sea. What can you tell us, or what can you tell them?
Yes, first and foremost, I would like to thank all our Filipino workers in other countries whose remittances have been helping our economy. I would like to thank Filipinos who have migrated and settled in other countries for being good citizens of that country where they are in. Your actions portray a very positive picture of our country. We are a freedom-loving people. We are among the most hospitable in the world. In fact, I would say we are the most hospitable. We welcome everybody. Everybody is a guest in our homes. But we have also to remember, and I would like to send this message to those who wish to trample upon our rights. We have a very long, storied history of Filipino warriors. We may be the most hospitable, but we are among the fiercest warriors that the human race has ever seen. And we could hit back in ways they have never imagined. We could hit back in ways that we may not match them strength for strength, but we could hit them where they are vulnerable. And to our Filipinos, to those who are supporting your station, Jerome, keep tuning in. Rest assured, your Philippine Navy, your armed forces will look after the integrity of our beloved country. We will protect our sovereignty. And we are doing everything that we can with all that we have to look after your welfare wherever you are around the globe.
All right, and that's a very inspiring message to our Filipinos who are asserting our rights.
Yes, Jerome. And rest assured, the Philippine Navy in the West Philippine Sea, we will continue fighting for our rights. We will ensure that our features will remain intact. We will continue providing provisions to our people and rotating our people there, not only in BRP Sierra Madre, but in all our other occupied features in the West Philippine Sea and the Northern Islands.
Oh, okay. All right. And with that, thank you for joining us in the program, Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad.
Yes, you're welcome, Jerome. Have a good day and more power to you and to all your followers.
All right. And that was a Philippine Navy spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad. And that concludes this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Together with our producer Erwin Peñano and technical personnel Milo Janela, this is your host Jerome Toledo. Join us again here on Front and Center. Mabuhay and love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.